stomachache all night last night. Actually, I started getting worried yesterday.
I did too.
It was easier when we were just sitting listening.
The first issue the jury focuses on is whether or not Laura knew her daughter was being abused.
If there were experts that did not pull that child out of that situation, then how can we say that she knew she was in a harmful situation?
And I agree with that.
I agree with you.
I definitely agree with that.
Granted, I agree. The social workers dropped the ball. Potentially the police dropped the ball. There's a lot of people that dropped the ball. But she was there a good part of the time when the abuse started. She knew what Randy was doing. You cannot miss those marks.
She told her friends she was scared, and she left and came back and left and came back. I mean, I have a hard time believing she had no idea that her child was in a terrible environment.
And that's, I don't know if she did. Really. You take her, how she grew up, like they all said, she didn't have a role model. She didn't have a structured life. And that they say
Monique Padilla, a student, is the foreperson.
Right now it sounds like we're not looking at the broad picture.
She is not being truthful about the whole
She
thing.
knew something was wrong.
As of September through February, did the mother know that she was in an abusive situation, that that child was being abused by someone?
She saw him flicking her ears.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, you have to look at the whole situation. Flicking the ears, yeah, to us, that's not common sense. That's not,
That's abuse.
That's abuse. Whether she knew it was abuse or not, she knew it was happening.
Yeah, she knew what was happening, but what I'm saying is, did she look at it in that sense?
Did she know that the child was being harmed in the home?
She knew that the child's ears were being flicked.
Okay.
Okay, so I think...
Do you agree to that?
She knew that the child's ears had been flipped.
According to the law, if she was aware of this abuse, then she is guilty of some charge. The question is, which one? They start with the most serious.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, does anybody here think that Laura was involved in either the stomach punching, which I think is pretty obvious, or the head thing?
I don't think she had anything to
Does
do with
anybody
that.
think she was involved with either one of those?
With those two, no.
She didn't kill this child.
With those two, no, I don't
That's
think so.
one thing we can agree on. And she was
But
not
even if they
involved
all
in
agreed that she did not inflict the head blows, what does this mean in terms of the law? In an attempt to navigate through the charges, they write down all of their options.
The problem is they know what they want to do as individuals, and how does that decision fit the constructs that the judge has now laid in front of them? That won't be easy. The legal instructions, they're so freaking voluminous, and they're difficult.
We all agreed that Laura did not cause the major injuries to Alize. And let's technically say she was sleeping a good part of the time. Would she still be accused of causing the death of her child?
That's why.
According to their instructions, even if Laura did not cause the head blows, she can still be held responsible for her child's death and go to prison for 48 years. If she knew that Randy had previously abused Alize and there was a substantial risk that this could lead to her death, then Laura is guilty.
She didn't have to be aware that the baby was going to die. She just had to be aware that there was a risk because the risk was substantial.
Are you going to hold her responsible for what Randy did on that day?
Yes, I want to. I think we should. Because
And I'm not. I am not.
Absolutely
She
not.
knew, okay, I don't think anyone could fathom that a 22-year-old guy is going to punch a baby so hard that's going to kill him. I mean, that's unreasonable. I mean, you just don't imagine that.
They all agree that there is no way Laura could have known that Randy's abuse was going to lead to the death of Alize, and therefore she is not guilty of the most serious of the charges. They now move down the list, and the question becomes, should Laura have known that Randy's abuse was causing serious bodily injury, which carries a maximum penalty of 28 years?
And you just don't imagine that. I think an abusive guy that abuses a child over 6 months, it's reasonable to conclude that serious injury could occur.
Well, the only one of the serious bodily injuries that was there was the broken ribs. And we have no knowledge that she knew anything about that.
We have no proof or no evidence that she knew about it, or, or she saw it happen.
Or anybody can detect it for that
They
matter.
didn't find that until after she was dead.
I think if she's washing Alize, that anybody that gets close, hugs, puts her in her lap, and she doesn't just go, flinch in pain. Broken ribs are extremely painful.
Yeah, I know. Why did that happen when Laura was in the hospital? When she got out, they were healing.
She placed the child there, the result was the child got beat. She didn't do it herself, but she placed the
She
child.
didn't do it herself.
Right.
You see, that's what I had stopped. She didn't do it herself.
We're talking about keeping her in a environment where she could get hurt and where things escalate.
I feel like we're going in circles.
Yeah.
I really do.
Maybe we should take a vote again to see where we stand or something, I don't know.
They have 4 charges left, with penalties ranging from 32 years in prison to probation.
Recklessly with serious bodily injury.
Half believe Laura is guilty of the most serious remaining charge, recklessness, because they believe she did know that Randy had caused serious bodily injury by breaking Alizé's ribs.
Criminal negligence, no serious bodily injury.
The other half think Laura is guilty of the least serious crime, criminal negligence. They believe that Laura was only responsible for knowing about the least serious abuse, for example, the ear flicking.
Can we debate about why you guys think that it's possible that the injuries weren't serious?
The reasoning for me is that she did not cause a serious.
That's what I'm at with.
I second that.
Her actions caused serious bodily
No,
injury.
her actions did not cause it.
Yeah, her
So
act-
did
Randy
keeping
did.
around, if she had taken that child away from Randy, it never would have happened.
I'm sorry. I have a hard time with words, and especially when I get emotional. I'm getting very emotional right now. But I like I said, I think she did something. What I'm saying she said is defendant acted with criminal negligence.
When does Laura take responsibility for this child? When? It's too late now.
The judge is going to release you guys at 5, so if you can decide on a time that you want to come back tomorrow.
They leave for the night, evenly split.
I don't think it's going to hang. My guess is they're haggling over lesser includeds. I don't know. They requested to be back at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, so maybe they're getting close.
I think we all consider ourselves in here to be reasonable people. Hold on a second, if your child was in that situation, would you perceive that if you did not remove that child from that situation, that there would be a possibility that abuse would continue and that abuse could lead to something serious?
As a reasonable person, I would have never projected an escalation to the nature that the incident escalated to.
The facts in this case say that this child had broken ribs, and people here are discounting that.
If she has no reason to think that Randy's gonna break the baby's ribs, is she responsible?
They are still divided.
I don't think we're giving this girl enough credit. I don't think she was a stupid person. What she did was allow her child to be abused repeatedly without doing anything about it that ultimately led to that child dying. The primary caregiver needs to be held responsible for that, especially because she knew what was going on.
I'm trying to understand why a reasonable person that has a child that gets beaten by their boyfriend would think that it's only going to be bruising, only, never breaks.
That's just the way abused people think.
I think Laura should be accountable because it did happen. And she's, even though you're blindsided, you only see what you want to see.
So how do we get beyond this?
I honestly think that none of us are going to come to a conclusion.
Do you want to quit?
I'm just saying from what I perceive.
They won't let us quit. I mean, they'll say keep working on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You said you don't think anybody can convince anybody else.
Do you, from where we're at right now? I mean, we have somebody, I'm using her as an example, said absolutely she's not changing, basically.
So you're saying we're at an impasse?
To me, that's what it looks like right now, is what I'm saying.
in order to avoid a hung jury, both sides are gonna have to give some concessions. Because I don't think anybody in this room at this point is going to get what they want.
And I don't think 3 or 4 more days of jury is going to change anyone's mind.
How would you feel if,
I'll start for myself since I brought it up. I've stated yesterday that in my opinion, she is recklessly responsible for the death of that child. I have conceded down to serious bodily injury to the child. I'm willing to consider that the defendant acted recklessly and her actions caused any other injury other than serious bodily injury. I'm willing to consider that.
He is willing to let go of the most serious remaining charge and proposes that they meet in the middle and find Laura guilty of being reckless, but only of the least serious abuse. They are not allowed to know that this is not a felony, but a misdemeanor.
Given the fact that what I believe, I'm not getting what I want here. But I cannot walk out of this room not holding her responsible for what she did, and I understand that we're seeing her as guilty. To me, finding her guilty of acting with criminal negligence, to me, that is a slap on the wrist.
I mean, we all just have different moral values, ethical values, and legal values. And I'm in a room with people that have moral values that shock me, and we're never going to come to the same page. We just never will.
I'm asking for the people who believe serious bodily injury to concede to recklessly with their actions cause any injury other than serious bodily injury, and those that feel that she acted with criminal negligence in that same manner concede to recklessness. Of those in favor of this, please raise your hand. Congratulations, jury. You did it.
We got a verdict.
Mike, got a verdict. I'm sweating. My heart's going boom, 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 boom.
This is the worst bit. This is ultimately the worst.
Thank you. Ms. Leonard, if you would please retrieve the verdict form for Ms. Padilla. The verdict form on the charge of child abuse reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, Laura Trujillo, guilty of child abuse recklessly. The jury has further found that the defendant acted recklessly and her actions caused any injury other than serious bodily injury to the child.
Judge, it's my understanding, I believe what they've convicted her of is a misdemeanor.
I believe it is a Class 1 misdemeanor.
A Class 1 misdemeanor?
Oh, that's so good. I'm so happy for you. What did they find me guilty of?
That's a misdemeanor. You won. You won. I mean, that's a long way the maximum penalty here is 2 years in county jail. Okay? It's a long way away from 16 years to 48. Okay? Let's take you down to the...
Mm-hmm.